everyone, and welcome to another episode of The World of Sharks, a podcast all about sharks, rays, and the ocean, brought to you by the Save Our Seas Foundation. I'm your host, Isla, and every episode I sit down with brilliant experts in shark science, conservation, storytelling, and education to take you on a deep dive into a different part of the wonderful world of sharks. This year, the Save Our Seas Foundation celebrates our 20th anniversary. For the last 2 decades, we've been so proud to support innovative and world-leading projects around the world, working to protect sharks and rays, whether that be through science, storytelling, or education. We are also proud to have 3 centres dedicated to learning about sharks and rays and sharing that knowledge with everybody. In celebration, the World of Sharks podcast will be speaking with each one of those centres, starting today with the Save Our Seas Foundation Shark Education Centre. In this episode, we are exploring a very important topic in conservation, which is how to encourage and support the next generation to protect and care for our ocean and all the animals that call it home, including sharks. Young people will inherit the natural world, and while we hope that they will learn the joy and the love of nature, we also know that they will take on a lot of the problems that we have unfortunately left behind. In many ways, the youth of today are more clued in on this than ever, which is causing its own problems. Cases of eco-anxiety in children and young adults have skyrocketed, and especially in developing countries, young people are struggling with their mental health as they face an uncertain future. But there are also a lot of other challenges facing children all around the world. For example, the United Nations estimates that 1 in 6 children is living in extreme poverty. Severe inequalities and political instability directly affect children's access to education, healthcare, and nutrition, which are all factors to consider when we're talking about the next generation, the environment, and calls to action. So these are all things we're going to talk about today, and we're also going to talk about how we can encourage and support and nurture the next generation to learn about the issues facing the natural world and also, adopt responsibility to help solve some of those issues while allowing them to still be children and to still have fun and to play, which is so important in young development. And we're discussing all of these things with our fabulous guest, Dr. Clova Mabin, who is director of the Save Our Seas Foundation Shark Education Centre. Established in 2008, the Shark Education Centre could not be in a more perfect place. It is nestled in a beautiful corner of the iconic False Bay in Cape Town, South Africa, which is probably about as sharky a place as you can get. It also overlooks Dalebrook Marine Protected Area, which houses the unique marine ecosystems found in these waters like the kelp forest and the rocky shore. The Shark Education Centre is dedicated to helping children and adults from the surrounding communities to develop a healthy respect for sharks and the ocean, and learn more about the marine environment through play and state-of-the-art exhibits. This includes the general public as well as school groups, who the team guide through education programs to help build their confidence and knowledge around the ocean. I was able to visit a wee while ago, and even as an adult, I was so incredibly excited to go in because the whole centre is just absolutely covered in murals, so you look like you're under the sea, even on dry land. There's sharp sculptures everywhere, there's a touch pool, interactive exhibits, and the ceiling even looks like you're beneath the crest of a wave. It's just the coolest. And it's also filled with loads of amazing people who absolutely love what they do. While I was there, I got to chat with Clova and talk about the work that she and the team do. As we'll talk about, many of the communities who the centre work with are under-resourced communities with their own unique challenges and histories to consider. But the team are so incredible and so passionate about what they do, and many of them are from the same communities. And you can see the kids' faces light up. And you can see the kids' faces light up when they're all lined up ready to go to the beach. It's just an absolute joy to watch. We also talk about education and outreach more broadly, the importance of play, the power of hope, and navigating eco-anxiety, and perhaps most importantly of all, learning just as much from the younger generation than they do from us, if not more. Just before we dive into our episode, I just wanted to give a shout out to all the incredible education team, of course to Clova, who is featured in this episode, but also to Justine, Claire, Karen, Afakile, Logan, Wade, Lily, and Danny. It's just so awesome to see the joy and the passion that all of you have, and it's infectious. So this one is dedicated to all of you. Alrighty, grab your snorkels and your biggest smile, and let's dive in to our episode. Hello, Clova, and welcome to the World of Sharks podcast.
Thank you, Isla. It's good to be here.
It's so good to be here because, as listeners will have heard in the last episode with Pippa, I am lucky enough to be in beautiful Cape Town, or Cork Bay even, and we're actually not at the Shark Education Centre. We're in our Airbnb, but we have been at the Shark Education Centre, and it's the first time I've seen it, and it is just such a special place, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on. But no, I'm so thrilled to be here and to be chatting all about education and inspiring the next generation of shark conservationists with you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not raining today.
There has to be one day when you're in South Africa rather than Scotland where it's not raining.
I know, but I was saying to people earlier though that it's the rain here, it's proper rain. So it's not just in Scotland we get a lot of sort of drizzle. Yeah, well, as you'll know because you grew up in Scotland. But yeah, but here it actually properly goes for it, and I quite like that.
Yeah, it's funny actually. I said to someone yesterday, and you'll get this with the Scottish references, but I said the weather's dreich. But in Afrikaans, I'm going to get the Afrikaans wrong, but the word droog is dry.
Oh, that's confusing.
I know, exactly. It was the first time I'd come across it here as well, the difference. But anyway.
Dreich is such a good, it's Scots Gaelic, and I think it just kind of means like damp and cold and miserable, and it's such a perfect descriptive word for Scottish weather. Yeah.
It's not all that bad, Scotland, but there are quite a few days like that.
We can have sunny days. But yeah, it's been so beautiful here, and it's so nice to be back. But as you'll know, because I know you listen to the podcast, we like to start and end the podcast with the same question. And our first question is always, do you have an experience in the ocean that stands out for you as, you know, special or memorable? Because I know I always ask people, what is your most memorable experience? And people really struggle with that because a lot of the people I speak to have been in the ocean a lot. So, but is there one in particular that stands out for you?
So I really struggled with this question. And yeah, I thought of lots of times when I've had amazing experiences either in the water with sharks or taking children into the water and seeing their reactions. But actually, I've got two of my own children now, two girls, they're 3 and 6. And actually now for me, the most memorable experiences for me are now seeing their joy as they discover the ocean. So recently we were down the Cape Peninsula in Cape Point Nature Reserve. And for my PhD, I studied crabs. Important piece of information. Not sharks, but crabs. Actually an invasive crab, the European shore crab, which is commonly found across many of the British shores. But I studied the crab here in South Africa, and about how its invasion in South Africa and lots of things down that route. But anyway, it had never been found during my PhD, which was not that long ago. I finished in 2018. It had never come round the Cape Peninsula because there's a bit of a biogeographic barrier. So it had been found along the Atlantic seaboard, so on the kind of the other side of the Cape Peninsula, but never in the False Bay region. Mm-hmm. And actually, only 3 weeks ago, I was rock pooling with my kids in Cape Point, which is a protected area. It's a marine protected area, and we found one of these crabs. Oh, okay. And Actually, another family pointed it out to me, and they said, "Oh, have you seen the kid? Have your kids seen the crab?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. Let's go over and have a look." And then I kind of went off on a whole like, "Oh my goodness, it's Carcinus manus. It's a European shore crab. It's not meant to be here. It's never been found here before." And I think this family thought I was a bit bonkers. But yeah, for me, and also the kids' reaction, because they kind of knew also about my studies and know I'm a bit obsessed with crabs as well as sharks. So they were also giving in a few facts and things as well. So it was it was quite entertaining for me. Got to love a bit of crabs.
So is that a bad thing?
Well, it is, because this is gonna be World of Crabs. But sorry,
Crabs are included in the world of sharks.
Okay,
it's fine.
We're renaming the podcast.
World of crabs.
Maybe not quite as appealing.
I'm sure there's some crab fans listening to this.
But it had never been so. Because it's a marine protected area, where it had been found in Cape Town before were generally man-made areas. It was mostly restricted to harbours, which are not the most pristine environment in South Africa. It wasn't actually spreading outside of those harbour areas, so we weren't really concerned about the native flora and fauna. But obviously now that it is in a marine protected area and it's quite a pristine area, then yeah, there are other implications for the other species. It's quite a voracious predator, so especially on bivalves. So yeah, it can have impacts there.
So who do you call?
There's no crab busters, unfortunately. There were when I was doing my PhD. That was part of it. I had to try and see how feasible it was to eradicate crabs from South Africa, and I did take out quite a few, over 30,000 of them, but I'm no longer in that game. I did send a message to my PhD supervisor, and she said, and just checking whether it had been found there since my PhD, and she said no. So yeah, they're going to keep an eye out for it, and they're doing more studies in the marine protected areas this year, so hopefully they're going to see if they find any more. It was male, so fingers crossed there were no pregnant females or anything, and hopefully it was a once off.
Like, fascinating, but also worrying at the same time.
Yeah.
And that was only 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Jeez. Huh, fingers crossed.
I know. Yeah, I bet you've never heard a story like that before.
I haven't, no, but it's amazing, yeah. But you finished your PhD in 2018, but I kind of wanted to rewind a little bit and talk about your childhood growing up. And you obviously grew up in Scotland, which we've mentioned, relatively close to the ocean. Has the ocean played a big part? Did it play a big part in your childhood?
So we lived in the countryside, but we were probably about 20 minutes from the sea. But we spent a lot of our time outdoors. We didn't have a TV until I was 13. So my parents were big advocates in us just climbing around in the mud and climbing trees and being proper nature babies. And we were often either on the mountains, in the forests, or at the beach. But obviously in Scotland, it's not like going to the South African beach where people only go really when it's sunny, which is a lot of the year, to be fair. But I mean, like, I was looking at pictures the other day of us on the beach in Scotland, and we were there in full waterproofs, like thick clothes, like proper, like, what do you call those like sou'westers, like wax layers to keep the water from getting anywhere near us, head to toe. But yeah, we spent a lot of our childhood on the beach, in the sea, even though it was very cold, obviously.
Yeah, you kind of have, well, if we waited until it was sunny there, you'd get in like 2 weeks of a year, I think, probably. So you grew up next to the sea, going to the sea, and then what kind of led you down the path of marine science? Was it kind of something that you'd always thought about, always wanted to do, or was it kind of, for me, it was a bit of a surprise. So about 6 months before I applied for UCAS is when I decided that I was going to go down that road. But how was it for you?
Yeah, I kind of knew I always wanted to do something with animals. So actually my undergrad and honours was in zoology, actually not marine biology. And then, yeah, I started with zoology, but whenever I could, I always chose like marine subjects or marine kind of specialties and kind of extra stuff, or go to do like a 3-month program over the summer months that would have a marine link to it. So I think during my third year or second year summer, I went to Madagascar for 3 months and did a marine conservation project there. And then when I graduated with a zoology honours, there are not many jobs for zoology graduates, and I was very lucky to get a job in a local aquarium. So kind of that really was when my marine experience was solidified there. Yeah. We had a large display that had ragged-toothed sharks in it, and we took people in diving with the raggies as well. So that was kind of really the moment when sharks were first and foremost for me. They kind of became a little bit of an obsession.
Yeah, because that was my next question actually, was like, when was there a point that you decided that you wanted to work with sharks? Was it the ragged tooth that set you off?
So when I was working at the aquarium in Scotland, I met a shark specialist who was visiting with his Scottish girlfriend, and she had had some experience working on a white shark research boat in South Africa, and he had a cage diving company in South Africa, and they basically convinced me to come out to South Africa for 3 months at the time and see some sharks in the wild. So yeah, I worked at the aquarium for just over a year, and then I decided that I was going to try a 3-month stint in South Africa, and then it just kind of kept getting extended. And now it's 18 years later and we're still here. But yeah, that was kind of the initial hook that got me out here.
Yeah, it's a pretty special place.
It is, especially if you love sharks. Over 125 different species of sharks.
I know, it's amazing. I went for a day. I went for my first snorkel here yesterday, and within 10 minutes we'd seen a pajama shark, and I lost my mind. And then I think it was a shy shark I saw. I also saw a shy shark within like the next 5 minutes or something. It's a very, very sharky place. But obviously, as regular listeners will know, not as sharky in terms of white sharks or seven gills anymore because of the orca. But there are still many, many other species of shark that are still here and very much present. So we've kind of talked a little bit about working in an aquarium and moving to South Africa. And then I assume you did your PhD while you were here?
Last year, yeah.
And then how did that lead into your current role with the Shark Education Centre? Yeah,
so I actually did my master's and my PhD here in South Africa. So when I originally came out, I kind of came for my 3 months, and then actually I did go home back to Scotland for actually only a week. And then I got a call from a friend saying he was doing a National Geographic shoot. Did I want to come along and join him and kind of work a bit like a fixer for it? So I came out again a week later, and then I kind of went down a little bit of a wildlife film route where I did that shoot for National Geographic, and then I got involved with a wildlife film academy in Cape Town. And I worked there for a year, I think it was now. I was working as the course coordinator there. Through that course, I met a wildlife filmmaker who had a small company in South Africa, in Cape Town. And I worked for him as a researcher, so checking current science and looking for potential stories, but also as a production manager, so kind of doing the managing of the practical side of things, the bigger kind of picture of the company, like managing shoots, the budgets, and kind of lots of life skills all in one there. And then from there I decided I wanted to go back and study, and I did my master's at the University of Cape Town in conservation biology, again with a marine kind of angle to it. And then I worked also in an environmental company for a few years, and kind of getting a broader marine, South African marine base before doing my PhD at the University of Stellenbosch, also again in the marine invasion side, as we talked about earlier. So I got pregnant during my PhD, which is not advisable. In terms of your PhD, I mean, obviously it's great to have children, but in terms of your PhD plans, it's not advisable.
Time-wise.
Yes, exactly. But then becoming a mother and wanting to share my passion for the ocean pushed me off on a different angle, but using some of the skills that I'd learned with the wildlife film side of things in terms of the communicating the science. But also I worked at a little school helping with a little environmental program that they had. So I had experience working with young kids, but then also with the broader skills that I'd got from my previous jobs. Yeah, it all came together kind of really when this job was offered to me at the Save Our Seas Foundation Shark Education Centre. Yeah, so now I'm the director here, and I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit more about it. But yeah, I've been at the Shark Centre now for over 4 years.
Now I did want to talk about the Shark Education Centre. And I wanted to start off by talking about where it's located, because it's located in a pretty special place. So can you describe for our listeners where it is?
So we are, the Save Our Seas Foundation Shark Education Centre is based in Cape Town, South Africa to start with, so right at the bottom of the African continent. Particularly we're on the Cape Peninsula, which kind of goes down the west side of False Bay, and we're right on the shore of a marine protected area. We've got the intertidal zone, the rocky shore right in front of us, which leads directly into the kelp forest, which is an amazing environment.
Yeah, you can see from the windows of the Shark Education Centre, you can see right out onto its Dalebrook.
Yep, Dalebrook Marine Protected Area, yeah.
And you can even see the kelp sort of floating on the surface. Yeah, it's very cool. And going into the centre as well, I was so excited. As an adult, I can't imagine what it's like as a kid, but you've got all these murals, these amazing murals painted on the walls of like the rocky shore, and there's shark art made out of recycled materials all over the walls, and even, I don't know what it is that you've made the ceiling out of, but as you walk in, it looks like you're underneath the surface of the water.
Yeah, so that was one of our lockdown projects actually, because we didn't have groups, school groups. So it was one of the few times where we could actually do a major change to our facility without worrying about coordinating between school groups. But yeah, the idea was that when the school groups visit and they come in through our pup entrance, that they arrive, and the first kind of area where they stand it looks like the shores of False Bay. So we've got the brightly coloured beach huts, which are actually just cladding for our water tanks. And then we've got, so it's like a sandy shore, and then you start to see the rocks where they're painted with murals, and you can see the different types of seaweeds and algae on the rocks, and then also like limpets and barnacles, everything's been painted on those rocks. And then as they slowly start to move into the centre, that you see the depth zones increase, and you can see the different animals and plants that you would find at those different depths. And as you say, the roof the roof is actually sadly one of the few things that we couldn't use from recycled materials, but it's made to look like the water surface. So when you're walking on the ground, which is also tiled to look like the sea floor, the surface above you, it looks like you'd be looking up so that you're under the water.
Yeah, so that's where these kids come in for the first time, and then you go in the back door, and there's like a touch pool with different sea creatures in it, and there's all kinds of activities for them to do in the centre. It's such a cool place. And I walked in and was like, this is an amazing office.
Yeah, it's not bad.
But so you mentioned school groups there, and obviously it's called the Shark Education Centre, but what is your core mission at the SEC?
Yeah, so essentially we aim to connect people to the ocean through experiential education programs, and we do that in order to nurture awareness, encourage environmentally responsible actions, and to develop a healthy respect for sharks. But yeah, to kind of help them fall in love with the ocean so that they will be inspired to protect it.
And I remember from your talk at Sharks International, you were mentioning that you have like different lengths of programs as well.
Yeah, the majority of people, and we have like school groups, so we work with school groups and other groups, but school groups would normally come to us during the school week, and normally mornings. So most mornings we're busy with a group between 30 and 60 kids at a time. Yeah, we've got 2 classrooms, but it does require, we've also got quite a large team to manage all the children. So we normally do a shortish 3-hour program in the morning that we offer, and that would just be a once-off where we see that group of kids once, and then maybe again in a couple of years. But we also do what I would frame in the bigger picture, medium-term programs, where we'd work with the kids over 10 weeks, and those would be things like maybe taking kids. So for example, we've got our Sea School program where we're working with a local school at the moment in Kalk Bay. And we piloted this, I think the last year was the first year for us. And it's a primary school, so it's mostly crafts-based activities. And they do a term on the rocky shore and then a term on sharks. And they've just started the sharks term actually just now this week, and they are so excited about the sharks, which is really cute. And then we've also got our Marine Explorers program. So that's actually, we started that in 2013, so long before my time. And it has changed slightly in terms of the program that we offer. But at the moment now we offer it to high school students, and that involves taking them snorkeling over the course of 10 weeks. The same group of kids goes out each week, and also there's several conservation-based lessons in that as well. So yeah, those are some of the experiences, but we've also got things like community-led programs where we've got community ambassadors, and we call them our ocean ambassadors, and they are in different communities at the moment, and they're responsible for organising community events, mostly centred around beach cleanups, but also talks and things as well. So, but really to find people within the communities that are relatable, and also it's much more sustainable that way.
And then, but speaking of the kids that come to your centre, a lot of the children that you work with are, you know, despite living in quite close proximity, they can be quite disconnected from the ocean, and we've talked about this before, but they face many challenges, you know, outside of environmental issues. And I just wondered if you could, you know, talk a little bit about that and how you approach marine conservation education with those kids.
Yeah, so as you say, they might live within, 2 or 3 kilometres from the ocean, but sometimes they'll only visit the beach once or twice a year, normally around the Christmas period. So those kids might have very little connection with nature, so either actually of a blue or a green variety, so sometimes there's very little green spaces around them as well. So their connection with nature is very low, so they really don't know much about the ocean. Some of them just think actually that it's just the surface and that there's nothing below. So they might have seen the surface of the water, but they can't even begin to imagine what lives underneath. Yeah. Like they know that there's fish there, but sometimes there's a disconnect between how that fits together. So yeah, I mean, when we work with these schools, sometimes there's a little bit of not disinterest, but they're kind of not as intrigued as we would hope they would be when they're learning something new. Yeah, we start off very slowly, but to then just show them kind of the awe, the wonder that we have in our oceans, and hope that we can entice them to fall in love with it. But then, as you say, yeah, again, they also have lots of other issues, and how can we give them something else to think about and to love when they've got so many other things that are happening in their lives. I mean, for example, some of the kids that we have seen before, they only get their meals at school. So they might not have had breakfast in the morning before they come to us. They don't sometimes have access to running water in their homes. Sometimes they don't have a safe space to live or have parents and guardians that can look after them. So yeah, it's something that, I mean, I don't think we really have the right answers for it, but we just have to try and do what we can and to try and share the work that we do while being understanding that they have other more pressing priorities often.
Yeah, because I think one thing that we talked about at Sharks International was we were talking about eco-anxiety in kids. And one thing you said that really stuck with me was that they haven't got to the point of eco-anxiety yet because there's so much other stuff going on for them to worry about that they just haven't quite got to that point where eco-anxiety is even featuring. We're going to talk about this a little bit later on about coming to like calls for action, but you must have to frame that with that in mind, which must be quite challenging actually.
To be honest, I don't do the most of the teaching on the day-to-day. I have a great team of teachers that do it, and so I also don't want to speak for them, but I do have a wonderful team that do everything they can. And also the team I'm a foreigner in South Africa, but my team are all South Africans, and many of them have grown up in these communities. So they also know the reality of these kids' lives and how many of them have lived them themselves. So yeah, they really are the best team to kind of help these kids without pushing things down their throats and making them more anxious, as you say.
I mean, it must vary quite widely, but how do you find the kids respond when they're learning about the ocean for the first time?
So a lot of the kids, especially because we are working predominantly with under-resourced communities, these are not kids that have had lots of storybooks at home. And so my mum kept a lot of my old storybooks when I was little. She shipped them all out to me. I think she had eventually had enough of having our stuff in her house. So I got a whole shipment recently and all the kids' books. But I mean, even if I look at how stories have changed since I was a kid, and okay, so I'm a little bit, I'm now 40, so it was a while ago, but like nowadays, if I look at the books my kids have, and you can buy in shops nowadays, it's all like smiley shark this and friendly shark like this and that kind of story. Whereas when I was growing up, there weren't that many of those stories. Like it wasn't as commonplace. The kids that we're working with, they haven't seen the smiley shark stories, and they haven't seen the friendlier shark versions and heard that side of the story. So they only hear things about sharks from the news or from family members. Yeah, sometimes we don't exactly have the kids that are fascinated by sharks, like where you have the kids that are either having a dinosaur or a shark phase. We don't really have those kids coming to us from those under-resourced communities. So a lot of them are terrified of sharks when they come in. Yeah, it's kind of just trying to show them, sure, you can still be scared of sharks, but let's help you understand them a little bit more. So it's just kind of sharing some of the cool facts about sharks and how amazing they are, and how long they've been around and why they're so important, that we hope to kind of change some of those misconceptions.
And the kids that you take in the water, so when you take them snorkeling for the first time, do you have quite a similar reaction in that there's still, that element of fear there?
Yeah, I mean, one important consideration here in South Africa is that there are a lot of cultural beliefs linked to the ocean. And so for many of the South African cultures, they believe that the ancestors live in the water, their ancestors. So there's a big, actually a barrier where people don't want to put their faces in the water because it's breaking into kind of the ancestors' space. So it's not necessarily just about fear, but also about kind of breaking the cultural traditions. Obviously also, some people are scared of getting into that space, and also because a lot of children don't learn to swim here, they are terrified of the water, some of them. So actually for our snorkeling program, we only take children that can swim, but it's a spectrum. So some can swim but are still a bit nervous of it. We have had kids before that have not wanted to put their face in the water for snorkeling, which is challenging, because the whole hope is that by snorkeling they're obviously seeing the animals under the water and actually experiencing it, and also that they are able to relax enough to enjoy it. So if they can't put their faces in the water, then it's very tricky to get to that point.
I can imagine, but I think that's also a really good point in that, not every, as we've already said, not every child has access to the water, or is able to go snorkeling. But there are ways, even if they don't want to put their head in the water, there are ways to explore the ocean with them without that element to it. So I think one amazing thing that you've done with the Shark Education Centre is they don't have to get wet to see the life that's there. You've got the murals on the walls, and you've got all the books and the touch pools and things. So, and then obviously, some kids who are so far away from the ocean they can't get to it, there are still ways that they can learn about the life around them. But there's a lot of barriers there, and you also want them to have fun as well, which is such an important part of education. And I was interested to know how you build, because you're working with a full spectrum of kids right from primary up to high school, and how do you build play into your programs?
So yeah, I mean, play, there's actually very few clear definitions of what play actually is. So I think a lot of people associate play with young children, but actually, I mean, even playing a sport as an adult is a form of play. So yeah, kind of a hobby or something like that can also be a playful exercise. But I also believe that everyone can play, and if everyone finds it in themselves, then sure, you may feel a little bit silly as an adult trying to play, but I feel like it's really important, and it's such a good base for learning. The way that we incorporate play depends on the age of our target audience that we're working with at the time. So for primary school kids who are much more playful, kind of by nature, comes a lot more easily to them. We do lots of different things. So we try and have as many games in our activities as possible. Yeah, I mean, even things like incorporating something like role play, where we pretend they're different animals on the rocky shore, and someone's the waves, someone's the sun, someone's the wind. We had to stop that one during COVID though. It was quite a fun exercise, but yeah, COVID, nobody was allowed to blow all over the children for obvious reasons.
Because they said the role of the wind is just to literally blow on everybody else. Not COVID safe.
No, exactly. But yeah, then obviously, so then there's free play, and then there's structured play. And so for most of the time, we would be doing structured play in the Shark Centre. So we would be guiding the play in some way. And so yeah, it could include something like rock pool bingo, or shark bingo. We have a few games like that. Then we had a treasure hunt game around the Shark Centre where they had to find different facts and kind of piece things together and work as a team. Team learning is really nice for play because it's kind of when they share ideas and share kind of learning, then we find it's much more, it sticks much better. But even things like puppetry, I know Wade was telling you about the puppet show earlier. So yeah, just exploring stories, even storytelling. Yeah, those are all great ways for young people to be involved.
So you sent some of your staff on a course
to
learn about puppetry and that's its role in storytelling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that was earlier this year. They did a workshop on it, a 5-day workshop. They were also looking at the local cultures and how they can incorporate Indigenous stories into like the modern world, but also how to kind of include science in it, but to still find something that will stick and the kids will remember those stories. But yeah, I mean, it could be anything, like even on the beach, like we can do sand sculptures, even sack races. We've had kids doing sack races. They have to pick up something off the floor, the right answer to a question, and then run, and then the team's waiting on the other side. So yeah, I mean, anything like those kind of things, even like, so snorkeling also could be a form of play. One of our favorite snorkeling sites, they have a water slide, which normally the snorkeling session ends with kids flying down the water slide.
Amazing. I want to come and do one of these. Can I come and do a sea school, please? Sounds so fun. But it is so important, like even as an adult, like you're always going to learn best in an environment which you find fun, right? And yeah, it's such an important element, especially when you're talking about, when you go on later to talk about, quite complex, for want of a better word, like unfun issues. And I know we talked a little bit before about a game you play called, is it Race for Survival?
Survive the Century.
Survive the Century,
yeah. So that one we normally do with high school kids. It's an internet-based game. A lady called Sam, I'm going to get her name wrong, Sam Bexinger, I think it is, created the game. And there's also a book version of it. So if they don't have access to tablets or anything, then they can play it through the book. But basically, it's almost like a role play. So the kids we normally group the kids together, and then they have to make decisions and see how far they can survive into the future. So it's kind of a safe environment for them to make choices. And it can be from public health to politics to the environment to economics. Yeah, and they've kind of got to make decisions and see how far they get, and what situation, how each of those kind of elements have fared based on their decisions. So that's a really nice way for them to play with kind of big consequences and see what's most important.
Yeah, because my research group at Stirling specialise in actual research games like that. So you can get like different stakeholders to play to play a game, and they kind of understand the decision-making process of, say, someone from a different interest group, or even just members of the general public, trying to understand like how complex these decisions often are, and just how much you have to consider when you're kind of trying to make those choices. There's limited studies done on how effective it is, but it definitely seems like it works, and it helps people to kind of see things from a very different perspective without the actual consequences of having to make that decision. So yeah, it's really cool. I'll have to play it. I've never played it.
But I mean, there's lots of examples nowadays where, I mean, we gamify everything. Like we count the number of steps we do, we record everything now and make a game of it. Like if you do so many steps, then you get a free coffee or whatever. I don't know, there's a scheme like that in South Africa. I don't know whether it's in the UK. Those kind of things, as a game, like looking for the reward. And and I know of other organisations like WWF in South Africa developed a game around their sustainable seafood initiative, which is also really cool. And those kind of things, adding that element of gaming, where I mean, a lot of kids nowadays are into gaming. Well, those that can afford the equipment and things, but it's popular. It's got great appeal for younger generations in particular.
And I just wanted to pick up on something that you said a little bit earlier, and feel free not to answer this if you don't want to. But there's also quite a lot of history to Cook Bay, including, a very strong fishing culture and sort of associated tensions with that. And I was interested to know, is that something that you and the team have had to navigate, especially when you're doing things like community outreach?
Yeah, I mean, so it's quite right. There's a lot of history around most of the areas in South Africa. I mean, there was a Group Areas Act where a lot of people were displaced, and certain areas were designated as white and certain areas as coloured and certain areas as black. And Colk Bay in particular, where the Shark Centre sits, was designated as a white-only area. There were exceptions made for the fishing community and for a few people in the fishing community, but the majority of people that were here originally were moved out of the area. And there's a lady who does some work, and she takes people on historical tours. She is I think she's a third generational Colk Bay fisher person. She's not actively fishing now, but her family were fisher people. And she leads these tours and shows people the history of Colk Bay. And I mean, yeah, it is something that we have to consider. We also had an honours student last year or the year before from UCT, from University of Cape Town, who looked at the communities that don't visit us, so communities that are quite close to us that don't maybe come to us, and the reasons behind that, and whether there was a socio-ethnographic reason for that. Because it was a white area, whether that made people feel uncomfortable coming into a white area when they were not previously classified as white. And she did find that there was an element of that. So yeah, that's obviously something that we need to be considerate of. But yeah, we're unfortunately not going to be able to move the Shark Centre. So it's just about finding ways to help people feel comfortable coming to visit us, because really coming to the Shark Centre is an experience in itself. And if we go into the schools, then it's not as rich an experience that the children will then have. So I just really hope that we can encourage as many people to come to us. But obviously I do understand that there are barriers to that.
Yeah, and we're kind of going on to a question that I've got a bit later about the things to be aware of, when you're creating an education program or community outreach or anything like that. But quite often there is a lot of historical things that might not necessarily seem connected to conservation that can affect how people will participate or whether they will participate as well. I just thought it was quite interesting to touch on that. But I wanted to talk now a little bit, so we talked about the SEC, and I wanted to talk a little bit about inspiring the next generation on a more broader sense. So, the kids that you work with, or kids, around the world, are learning about how amazing the sea is, how amazing nature is. But then the next step is obviously to tell them about the issues that are affecting this place that they've just, learned to love, which we know can cause anxiety. And I know we've kind of already touched on the fact that a lot of the kids that you work with are maybe only just coming to that point now or haven't quite reached it yet. But eco-anxiety is definitely a thing that's rising around the world, especially, in Western countries. And I was quite interested to get your thoughts on what some of the strategies that you take to teach children about these threats while still kind of maintaining that sense of hope. So not instilling that sense of dread that seems to give children eco-anxiety, which I can imagine must be quite hard.
Yeah, I mean, we're still kind of trying to find the right strategy for this. I mean, it's such a difficult one, and there aren't that many studies out there indicating the best way to deal with it. Yeah, I mean, I've heard everything from working with social workers who obviously have a lot of experience dealing with trauma, about how you can kind of navigate those skills to get over trauma or to recover from trauma. Because essentially we are, telling them to fall in love with something and then saying, okay, but we're going to take it away now. And that loss, that grief that comes with that can be huge. Yeah, I mean, we try to be hopeful and also to give them constructive calls to action. So that's a big thing for us, especially to be realistic for the target audience. So, I mean, everyone's heard about when I was growing up, it was the 3 R's. Now it's like the 5 or the 7 R's. I've lost track. Like those kind of things. I mean, recycling for many of the kids that we work with, there's not the infrastructure in their communities to allow them to recycle. So it's really just in terms of strategies, we have to be careful that we are not asking them to do something that they physically cannot do. When you don't have recycling options, you can't be saying that that's something that they should work on when you're a 12-year-old kid. So it's really got to we've got to know the community as well as we can, so that we can suggest the best things that they can do, so that they feel that they're part of the solution as well. Obviously recycling is only one element of that, and one of the best things that we say is, even if you feel that you can't do anything, you can talk about it. You can share the facts that you know, that you've learned today with us at the Shark Centre. You can start to explore this with your friends and your family, and even though that feels like a small thing, just spreading that word and spreading that wonder, that can do so many things.
It's one of the most powerful things that you can do is use your voice, and that's something that everyone, like you said, everyone can do, regardless of where they are in the world or what their background is.
Or how many resources they have.
Yeah, exactly. And I know as well, it's obviously, it can be quite scary to do that, but I do think there's so many incredible young people now who are standing up on a world stage. So like, there's just been a load of kids at the last COP27 in Egypt. There are so many kids that stood up and talked there. Obviously Greta, Vanessa as well, who have shown young people that this is something they can be powerful by just using their voice.
Yeah.
I can imagine that can be quite uplifting in a way, and something that everyone can do. And it doesn't have to be on the UN stage. That's a very extreme example, but like you said, just talking to your friends and talking to your family about all these things is just quite accessible step.
Yeah, I heard a campaign once that they did around seatbelts and parents using seatbelts, and they taught the kids about seatbelt use and how protection that it gives, and then the feedback from the kids to the parents. If your kids tell you off about something, then you're much more likely to do it if your kids call you out on doing something wrong. So yeah, even if the kids can share some messages with their parents, then that's a great step.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very important to feel that you can do something, because I think that's where that sort of sense of hopelessness comes from, right? You feel like especially when you're a young person as well, I think you can feel quite powerless because you can't vote. You're not at the age where you can vote, and you're not at the age where you're working. But yeah, there's social media. There's such a power in social media. Almost everyone has a phone now, or you can have a conversation with somebody. Yeah. They're really easy. But I already met one today, but I wondered if any of the children or young people, young adults that you work with at the centre have actually then gone on to do marine conservation, or kind of have or are wanting to go kind of in that direction.
So I would say some of the kids that we work with on our longer term programs, so for example our marine explorers, there's a lot of kids that are really excited about the ocean from that. So it's really great to see. There are a lot of pressures for the kids that we're working with. So sometimes we haven't actually seen someone get into university to study marine conservation or marine biology yet, since I've been working at the Shark Centre that we've worked with closely. I hope there are people out there that we don't know about. But I know there have been some examples where kids have been really passionate and wanted to go on and study, but then perhaps not had the funds or not had the guidance during their high school careers to choose correct subjects. To get into study marine biology, for example, you need physics, and you also need a high level of maths, and some of the kids just weren't shown the path while they were at school. So there's that element. But then there's also a lot of the girls we work with, they actually are expected to look after younger siblings. So when they finish school, then that's kind of often becomes their role, or they're expected to start working as soon as possible to start helping the family financially. And then also of the children that are able to go to university, some of them, despite their passions for a certain subject, are often encouraged to maybe go for something like law or medicine, because it is more likely to lead to a better paid job. So yeah, I really hope that there are people getting into these careers, and at the very not the worst, but at the very least, I hope that there are people in other careers, and even if they go on to study law, then maybe they can become environmental lawyers. And even if you have people that have gone into other careers but have that love for the ocean, that still means a lot. So I know there are a lot of kids that have left us with love in their hearts.
Yeah.
So.
And that's one of the most important things.
Yeah.
But of course you've got your interns as well, some of which have become staff.
Yeah, so Logan, one of our team, she was a conservation leader through her high school and towards the end of her primary school. That was a program that was run by one of our partner organisations, Nature Connect, an organisation that we work with. And she started as an intern, as you say, and then went on to become a junior educator with us. And then also Wade, who you met earlier, he started off as an intern through his university degree, where he was studying marine science, and now is also a junior educator. So yeah, there are success stories, and if they also are, because they're so young, they're so relatable to the kids, and they really have been through that process. Yeah. They've been through childhood much more recently than I have, so they know what those kids want to hear and want to do. So they've got the ways to, and they've got the energy as well.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, they're always smiling. Yeah.
No, it is great. Yeah, it's great.
And we kind of touched on this earlier, but sort of as educators, is there anything that you think we need to be aware of, or anything that we need to consider when we're teaching children about the environment and encouraging action, especially in the current climate?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. I think, as we talked about already, to try and be as positive as possible, to keep the hope, to kind of give clear calls to action. I think those are important, and it can be something as little as sharing your voice. But then also to try and give them some power through those calls to action, but also let them use their voice in terms of how they explore the issue. So let them think outside the box, let them drive some of the learning around it. So it's not just it's one way from the teachers, the educators to the learners, but also that it's a two-way flow of information. So we can just be sometimes facilitators. It doesn't necessarily have to be a one-way flow of information.
That leads me on really nicely to my next question. It's a really lovely segue. Which was because we've talked so much about, educating young people, but is there anything that we can learn from the younger generation, especially when it comes to, nature and conservation? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I think a lot of people learned from Greta Thunberg as well. And I think they are going to come up with all these new ideas. I think they're coming up with them already. And I think if we can't learn from them, then it's very sad. So I think we should always be open to learning from children. I think it's really refreshing, and it's what keeps us also hopeful, if we can learn from them.
So we're coming on to our last two questions. So one of my final questions was, what are your plans for the centre moving forward? I mean, you're doing so much already, and that seems like a daft question to ask, because I'm just so inspired by the work that you and the team do. I think it's awesome, and you do so much. But do you have any kind of plans for the future?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of our building and our space itself, we are planning to make some of our classrooms bigger, but also more interactive, and to make one of the classes kind of more into a lab space, so they can do some practical experiments and try out some different things and pretend to be a shark scientist for a day kind of thing. So yeah, that's one of our plans. But also, I mean, we're looking at increasing into our education program, our offerings, so that we can get longer term programs in place. Because really, I mean, we're putting monitoring, evaluation and learning into place now, but my gut feel is that the longer term the programs are, the deeper the impact. So we are looking at potentially a longer immersive program for high school students, but maybe to follow their entire high school career, and kind of see whether we can get you those statistics for the marine conservationists at a later stage. I think that would be amazing to be able to do.
Speaking of that, I really resonated with what you said earlier as well about, there might not be kids that necessarily are going on to do marine science, but they will This is kind of what we need, though, is we need people to take those principles and that love of the ocean into other sectors. So things like, say, if they are going into business or they are going into law, or even just in their everyday lives, just having that base love for the ocean is just so important, because it's all connected. And we need people in those sectors who are more connected to the ocean, who can come up with those really innovative solutions and come up with the laws and everything. So I think you'll have had more of an impact than you think, even just getting the love of the ocean into their heads from a very early age. But we only have one question left. We've come.
Hard one.
It is a hard one. We've come to the end, and I don't know if you've actually settled on your answer yet.
I was going to just decide as we went along, and I still don't think I'm there.
But it is, if you could be any species of shark, ray, or skate in the world, what would you be and why?
Okay, so I'm going to give you an answer.
Okay.
So I'm going to choose a South African species, and I'm going to go with well, it's not just South African, but you find it in South African waters. I'm going to go with the broad-nosed seven-gill cow shark.
Nice.
Because it's been around for quite a while. It's one of the older species in terms of evolution. I'm not saying that I'm old. Maybe there is an element of that.
But it would be quite cool. Like we've had for someone that's had Greenland shark on the podcast before, because they live a long time, so you can see. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're 250 years old.
But I also kind of think of them a little bit as kind of the dogs of the sea, kind of like they're kind of quite like puppy-like almost for me. And yeah, I quite like dogs. I have an affiliation with dogs, and they are one of my favourite species of sharks to dive with. So I think I'm going to go with that.
And they get to hang around kelp forests, which would be a nice existence, I think. I think that's a great answer. I do. But anyway, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. I'm so glad that we could make this happen and that we could do it in person as well, which has been so nice. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And as always, we will leave links to everything in the show notes, because you've got the Shark Education Centre has an Instagram page and a Twitter as well.
Twitter, yep, Facebook. I think we even got a TikTok, trying to stay with the young generations.
Yeah. And if you are, I know we have listeners from South Africa, so if you are ever in Cook Bay, feel free to pop in. It's the coolest place.
Just make sure you make a booking first. In case we have any school groups. Okay.
Make a booking first and then go see the cool place.
That would be great. Thanks.
But yeah, thank you so much, Clova. It's been so fun to have you on.
Thanks, Isla. It's been really great.
The World of Sharks podcast was brought to you by the Save Our Seas Foundation. It was hosted and produced by me, Isla Hodgson. Our amazing visuals are by Jamie Silver. Our beautiful logo is by Nicola Poulos, and the wonderful jingle you can hear right now is by David Knight. A huge thank you to Clova for taking the time to come onto the podcast, and thank you for all of the team at the Education Centre for hosting me. I still wish I was there right now, hanging out with you guys and watching the sea out of the window. If you would like to find out more about the Shark Education Centre, I will leave links in the show notes as to how you can visit the centre if you're able to, if you're in Cape Town. Or you can also find them on social media. They are at Shark Centre on both Instagram and TikTok, and they do some pretty good TikToks, I must say. And as always, thank you at home for listening. If you want to get in touch, want to suggest a topic for us to cover, or you just want to say hi, please feel free to get in touch by emailing isla@saveourseas.com. Or you can find out more about the work of the foundation by following us on social media. We are at Save Our Seas Foundation on Instagram and at Save Our Seas on Twitter. Alrighty, have a jawsome week, and we will see you next time.